So that's a little taster of Ping, who are creating these amazing, very simple games for crowds, which is somewhat away from our sort of main theme of interactive storytelling, but very much looking at audience psychology and kind of group multiplayer experiences, often in stadiums. But Ping have found a way to do this with up to 100,000 people at a time playing on their smartphones along with the big screen in the stadium. So yeah, I talked to Gareth last year, and we're going to roll that film now, and we'll catch up with him for some live Q&A shortly.
I've been at Glastonbury, Wimbledon, and Silverstone in the last few weeks,
That's
and
pretty cool.
CONCACAF Gold Cup in America, and the Club World Cup with FIFA. So it's
Ace.
been fun. It's been a fun few weeks.
Cool. Sounds busy and sort of on the up, is it? Do you think it's kind of the word is spreading?
It's sort of 5 years ago when we first started in this space, we were thinking, it was it feels like absolutely natural progression that this is the world will be taking part in big mass participation activations at live sports and live events, and this is what the world will be doing. But when you're in the middle of lockdown and you haven't got any customers and you believe it, but you haven't actually got much evidence to support it, it's really challenging. And I think the world is now ready for what we do. So we're seeing the quality and the quantity of inbound leads we get every week is phenomenal. Just, from Premier League football clubs to brands, sponsors, their agencies, the whole lot all coming our way, which is wonderful. It shows we're doing something right. So at Ping, we believe that the future of sports and live events is mass participation. So by the end of the decade, fans at every great event on earth will be reaching for their devices to take part in big, big, big activations with 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 people in the stadium around them. And then fans from all over the world will be able to take part in these activations too. So we think that that will be perfectly normal and ubiquitous by 2030, 2035, something like that. But at the moment, the best you've really got is things like polls, votes, guess the score games, score predictors, stuff like that. Nothing really particularly that interactive, that engaging. And so gamification rather than games. But we make mass participation games. We make games for crowds. And so these are 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 player games that take place on a stadium big screen by everybody using their phone as a controller. What that does is it creates new sponsorship inventory for the rights holder, for the club, the team, the federation. It creates a better return on investment for the partner and the sponsor if they're involved. And we do all of that by, first of all, our sort of two of our key proponents are the way that we work is by focusing on the fun, focusing on the fan, and working on the wow. And it's about bringing everybody together into this shared moment where they get super, super, super excited, and we get the entire stadium erupting in laughter and cheering and booing and all of those things. And that has obviously enormous value for sponsors, because that warm, fuzzy feeling that we create at scale, every brand wants associated with them. So off the back of that, so we work on the wow, focus on the fun. Off the back of that, we get this engagement for the rights holder, which then creates value for their sponsors. And then off the back of that, we can then get really, really high participation rates in terms of opt-into marketing and also sort of click-through rates going to offers and special promotions afterwards because they've all had a great time in the first place.
And what's the maximum amount of people you think you've had playing at any one time?
The biggest, so our technology at the moment can scale to at least 70,000 concurrent players, all taking part in the same game at the same time in the same stadium. The biggest we've had so far is where are we now? In July, recording this, July 2025. Biggest so far is 20,000 concurrents, and that was for a world record attempt to break the Guinness World Record for the world's largest online quiz. And the official number, so to break the Guinness World Record for the world's largest online quiz, it has to be a quiz that lasts for an hour, and it has to be the number of people that answer every single question. So we peaked at over 20,000 concurrent users for that hour actually, but we about 5,000 of them skipped a question somewhere along the line. So the real number is about 15,000 for the official
Oh,
Guinness World Record number.
did you need to break the record? Or did you break the record?
So we did break the record, and in fact we doubled the record, and it was our own record that we doubled. So we previously had done another Guinness World Record attempt with Auto Trader in the UK, and they gave away 2 electric cars as prizes, and similar thing, same thing, had to be an hour long. And so they were giving away all sorts of amazing, incredible prizes, about £100,000 worth of prizes that they gave away. And it was just a really nice, fun, wholesome thing that we did with that one. And again, in terms of getting everybody to answer every question, the official number there was about 7,000, but with the real number of people taking part was close to 15, 16,000.
It's intriguing. It really is intriguing. And I think, as I mentioned before, as soon as I saw Ping kind of springing to life, because we've known each other a long time, I was just like totally like now idea. So yeah, it's good to see it kind of growing. And I didn't know about the Guinness Book of Records stuff. But maybe if we can kind of rewind and get a bit of history on you.
Okay, so my background is digital agency. So I co-founded an agency in Manchester back in, I think it was either 2000 or 2001, and did that for about 15 years. And the kind of work that we did was hyper casual games, lots of educational content. And we also did some of the work towards the last few years that I was involved in the company was working with TV broadcasters, and on some mass participation TV formats. So we're working with BBC and Channel 4 on some format ideas of how, and the bit that we were trying to solve, we were working with the TV NDs and with other companies that could provide the infrastructure to do that. And the bit that we were involved in was how can we make that participation meaningful for potentially 100,000 people at home who are watching a TV show? And again, is something that's more than voting. So voting was the best that we had 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago. It kind of still pretty much is the best that is going on in live TV. Different in the YouTuber space and the streaming space, the content creators, but on traditional broadcast telly, it's pretty much still the same as it was 15 years ago. But we were thinking, how can we make this meaningful? So you're not just kind of voting for who you want to stay in or who wants to leave, but doing something that is exciting where you actually feel like you're part of the action, and not regression to the mean. So that was my background, and the origination of Ping was from Adam and Ed, and they had their own digital agency called Rhythm Digital, and they did lots and lots of work in the event space, in museums and things like that. And they had this idea. Ed had an idea. I wonder if we could make a game on the big screen that you control using your phone as a controller, without downloading an app. And they hijacked an event in Manchester that had about 100 people. And the first game was it's called Rebound, and essentially it's like Pong but for up to 100 people. And so obviously being a small boutique digital agency, don't have 100 people on hand to just test these things. So they said, we've got this thing, we'd want to see if it works. Can we hijack the break halfway through the event tonight and stick this game on just as a tech test? And the bit that nobody really realized was, because we were just thinking, is it going to work? Is it going to crash? And all the rest of it. What we had were the room just erupting and laughing and cheering and booing and eyeing and all of this in this version of game like Pong-like game. And so then Jay, one of our other co-founders, was there, and he's like, this is magic. We've created something absolutely fantastic. And that was kind of this origination point, of how can we do something sort of fun and exciting and build a product, as many digital agencies, particularly boutique digital agencies, always looking to move away from that selling time as a business to creating a product and selling that over and over again. So Ping was this side hustle for many years, and we did lots of little pieces of work in and around sort of events, trade shows, things like that. But it was very difficult to actually get it to scale, for people to actually to do things. QR codes, even though they did exist, people didn't know what they were yet, so sticking that on a screen wasn't helpful. And it was an idea that was just ahead of its time, really. I got involved. I was working with the guys as an external advisor, and one day we were having this chat and conversation. We were saying, how's Ping going? Have we found something big and exciting yet? And Ed said, oh yeah, we've got this project with Manchester City, and they were basically, we were involved in a startup challenge where they got startup companies to come in, bring their ideas in to solve different problems that the club was facing, and this was or different challenges. This was looking at fan engagement, and essentially after a week of sort of working with the club, they said the brief was, we love your 30-player games. Can you make one for 55,000? And so for me, with my background from doing some of that work around the mass participation TV stuff, my head was going in all of these different directions. I was thinking, technically, this is really challenging. Creatively, this is really challenging. How do you make that meaningful, not voting? And then thirdly, this is the most exciting thing I've thought of, I've been involved in, I've heard for a long, long time. And then the bit that I was then we were thinking was, how much does a sponsor pay for a TV commercial at halftime in a football stadium that nobody's watching? And we said, is it £1,000? Is it £10,000? We have no idea, but it's going to be in that ballpark somewhere. And everybody's ignoring that TV advert. So if that's a TV advert that everybody's ignoring, that they're paying some form of thousands of pounds for, how much would they pay for a game where 10,000 people might take part? And it can be fully branded for a sponsor. You can collect data at the end and have a button at the end that takes you on for an onward journey. And we said, we don't know, but whatever they're paying for a TV advert, they will pay more for this. And so this was our sort of inflection point, really, of thinking, this is what we need to spend the next chunk of our lives doing, is the next however many years is focusing on this mass participation games for crowds inside sports and live events. That was towards the end of 2019. We had a pilot coming up at the club in 2020, March 2020. And I don't know if you remember 2020. It was a challenging year for everybody. So we just started making games for crowds just as crowds became illegal for about 2 years. So that was incredibly challenging period for a couple of years.
What did you do? What did you do?
Well, the agency was still kind of going along. So we basically were still doing the agency work. And whilst we consider 2020 being our birth date, because that was when we were like, this is what we are doing now, and set up a separate company to do that. That's the point where we're like, this is it now. This is the future. We basically just survived on doing the agency work for a couple of years, bits and bobs coming in and doing anything and everything we could to exist, whilst in this belief that this is the future. But not much evidence to prove it. Occasional bits of jobs coming in here, there, and everywhere. Lots of conversations. Lots of interest, but actual in terms of that real money, it was particularly that first year, it was very, very low, but it was slowly getting higher, slowly getting higher, slowly getting higher. And we managed to finish our last piece of agency work, probably, I think 2022, something like that was the last year. And we've been self-sufficient purely on Piing games ever since. And so now we're profitable, growing, and on our mission for world domination.
I mean, I also played before the lockdown. I played Jackbox games. Have you ever played Jackbox games?
Yes, yeah, they're fantastic.
Which, yeah, and it reminded me like that kind of handset mobile with a screen that everybody's looking at. Because Jackbox are brilliant, I think,
Yeah.
really inspiring.
Really high production values, aren't they? They're brilliant games.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those. And Piing Away is like that, but much bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of around a TV screen, we're usually, not always, but usually it's around a big screen at a stadium or a fan zone, something like that. So that's our TV. And instead of it being half a dozen people, it's 30, 100, 1,000, 10,000 that are taking part.
When we spoke a couple of months ago, you mentioned about a secret sauce for interactivity or some kind of acid test type of thing. Do you want to do that? And we don't have to. I mean, I'm quite happy to
totally. When we're ultimately, probably 8 times out of 10, when customers are buying our games, it is usually either directly paid for by a sponsor or indirectly paid for by a sponsor. There's a whole chunk of other work that is just purely about fan engagement, and it's just about creating the fun times. But a big chunk of it is definitely being paid for by a sponsor directly or indirectly. So when we're coming up with our new ideas, we don't start off with how can we make the best brand activation that we can. We start off with how can we make the best game that we can. And so we start sort of really breaking it down. And we always say that our our games are ultimately a prop for getting the audience to react. So we start thinking about, for this game, what is the sound that we want the audience to make, and when do we want to make it, and how we're going to get them to do that. So we can start thinking about the oohs and the ah moments, and we often when we then see them in the real life, because it is the sound of the crowd that gets us out of bed in the morning. It's just it's very addictive. Hearing thousands of people cheering for your game is amazing, absolutely incredible, and that's why we do it. But we sort of, we start to think about what is it, what is a game ultimately, and is it points, is it leaderboards, is it prizes, and all those other things. And games may include those, but those are gamification elements. Gamification by itself is not a game. So we think that to understand what is a game, you need to understand what is play and playfulness. And play is about voluntary escapism. It's about having this safe space where you can do whatever you want without any consequences into the outside world. So it's this safe place to mess around in, and it shouldn't feel like work. So I think we've all done lots of work in the space of e-learning in years gone by, and we approach that in exactly the same way of just focusing on making it fun, and the learning, whatever that may be, is sort of inherent in what you're doing. But it's not chocolate covered broccoli, because people spot that straight away. It has to be inherently fun. So if that's play, then bringing that back to games, what is a game? And for us, we think of it as play with rules, and rules that are really simple, that can be explained in a couple of seconds. For the kind of stuff that we're doing, hyper casual stuff, it needs to be simple rules that can be explained, don't need explaining at all. But then there's sort of three, or for us, four extra elements to what is a game, or what makes a good game, I should say. So the first three are agency, skill, and luck. So you need to have agency, you need to have complete control over your avatar, your thing, your whatever direction you're going in. So control over your destination within that game. Then you need skill. So you need to be able to have not just agency, but you need to be able to get better at it. And then you need to have some luck, throw some luck in there. So if you take away luck, so it's just agency and skill, then whoever is the best player always wins. And that can get boring, even for the best winner that's always winning all the time. So that's why we need that element of luck in there. Luck means that the superstar will occasionally bash into something that slows them down, and the underdog will get something that gets them to the top. And that makes it a wonderful experience, not just for the players, but for everybody that's spectating and watching as well. And then if you take out skill, so it's just agency and luck, then that's a lottery. A lottery is a good example of that. You've got complete control over the numbers that you choose, but there's no skill involved, and it's just absolute luck as to whether you win or not. Lottery is very popular, but it's not what we do. It's not exactly fun, is it? So we believe that those three elements of agency, skill, and luck are what makes something really, really exciting as a game. But then the fourth element that's sort of fairly unique to us and the other people in the space that we work in is this idea of crowd dynamics. So for us, we can go on for far too long. Me personally, can go and talk far too long about crowds and human behavior on this side. So we are pack animals. We need to belong to the pack, to the tribe. And that is in every one of our 1 trillion cells. You've got 2 meters of DNA, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of genes in there that are all telling us that we need to belong to your tribe. And they're looking out for things that make us, make us belong, feel part of this pack together. Because we know that by ourselves, we will struggle and perish, but together we will thrive and survive and thrive. So that's the bit that we tap into, is all sorts of little things that make you feel part of this crowd around us. And what's nice is that these devices that we all have on us all of the time, ironically, these are communication devices so that we can communicate with people, but we tend to just disappear into these little worlds and hide from the outside world when we're in public through these devices. But what we do is use these to bring everybody together into this shared moment. Ed often says it's the best way to have fun with a complete group of strangers without getting arrested. So it's truly dynamic, exciting moment when you are playing with a bunch of strangers and everybody's shouting and cheering and doing stuff together. And that's that magic sort of fourth element that we bring into gameplay.
It's amazing. First part of your game design is what sound do we want the audience to make when is fascinating. I'm also intrigued about the audience psychology and belonging to the pack. So, I mean, you said you could talk more, and if you want to, then.
So Susan Weinschenk wrote a fantastic book a number of years ago called How to Get People to Do Stuff, and in there she kind of broke down all of the complicated books like Daniel Kahneman, How Thinking Fast and Slow, and all of the other sort of fantastic psychology and economics books, broken down into bite-sized chunks that mere mortals like I can understand. And in there, she sort of had these 7 ways of getting behavior change. And I won't be able to remember them all now, but it's things like habits, it's desire for mastery, it's the need to belong, and it's those 2 in particular of desire for mastery. So how to get better at something, and the need to belong are 2 of those big motivators that we use to bring people together. And so some of our games are team based. So we've got a game called Pen Kick, which is a 50,000 player penalty shootout game where everybody takes a shot on their phone, and we have a moment on the big screen as thousands of balls all go firing towards the screen, and the reaction that you get is everybody just points at the screen and they burst out laughing, and then they talk to the friend next to them and they say, "Have you seen that?" And then they put and then they laugh, and then that's when the first team goes, and you get a little bar chart like that as it goes up with how many balls have gone in, what percentage of balls gone in. Then you get the second team and they go, oh, and they nudge each other and they point at the screen and go boom, and thousands of balls go up. And then as the second bar chart goes up, you hear the crowd cheering for the bar chart. And it's like, oh, yes. And the whole audience, the whole stadium starts laughing and cheering for this bar chart. And so by noticing these things, that ultimately it's the bar chart that gets the cheers. They wouldn't get the cheers if it wasn't for the rest of the game, but it's the bar chart is the crescendo. So we
That's when everybody comes together in a way.
Yeah, that's it. That's the climax of it in that sense. And so we put more emphasis on that. So we get the bar chart to go tick, 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 so that you can really build up that suspense and have some extra sound effects on there to make that moment a bit more fun. So you've got the us versus them bit of that. We being us, we like everyone to be us. We don't like much of otherism. But so the only time we do otherism is on a team basis. But even then, we have done, or some of our clients, I should say, have done home versus away inside stadia. That can work very well in women's sport, less so in men's sport. But so we've got one of our customers did at their local derby. They did they did home versus away for the local derby, and they said, we would never be able to do this at a men's match, but in the women's match, everybody was cheering for both teams. Everybody's having an absolute ball, and the away team won, and the home crowd thought it was brilliant. And so, very, very different vibe in women's sport. In men's sport, you wouldn't really do home versus away, but you might do this side of the stadium versus that side of the stadium, or north stand versus south stand. And something that we're playing with at the moment is grown-ups versus kids. And that's a really, really nice model. So it means that the us versus them is very friendly. And again, it's just getting this into a different dynamic that everybody can take part in. So you're bringing down that animosity that you can have sometimes in some sports into the us versus them is much more friendly and fun in that sense.
And do you think, I mean, this might be my reading, and I haven't seen all of the games. I don't know exactly how many games you've got, but are they, in essence, very simple? I mean, it's interesting that you talk about the detail and going into the detail of the bar chart. Obviously, kind of noticing, leaning into the stuff where the reaction is peaking is brilliant. But yeah, I'm interested in whether at a sort of at a certain level, everything is kind of simplified because that's what works.
Totally. I mean, it's difficult to make things simple, right? And it's very easy to make things difficult. So we spend hyper casual is probably the word for what we do. But we've got essentially currently got three types of game. So we've got down at the bottom end where we started, we've got our fan zone game. So we've got a 30-player racing game, and so we can do complete reskins on that. We've got about 15, maybe more now, actually, different versions of that. We've got a tennis version that was live at Wimbledon last week for a couple of weeks, and had thousands of people playing that over the week. We're just building a cricket version. We've done rugby versions. We've got football versions. So lots of stuff in different sports for the 30-player racing game. Then we've got a game that's like a Pong style game called Rebound, and that can scale to 100 people. And we've got lots of different reskins of that from football and ice hockey and so on in there, as well as a sort of traditional retro version. So those are the smaller stuff. And then going up a level, we've got Pancake, which is the penalty shootout game. We're just building an American football version of that, and we'll have a rugby version soon after as well. And then the sort of the biggest product is the quiz product that broke the world record, and that can go to 70,000 concurrents currently. And that's probably our most versatile product because it's sport agnostic and it can work for a room of 100 people, whether that's at a conference or 100 people in a hospitality suite in sports, right the way through to 10,000 people or 5,000 people in a fan zone, 10,000 people in a stadium, 50,000 people in a stadium. And we can also do fans at home as well. So we can have an embedded live video stream in there so that fans all over the world can take part in this live quiz. So even though we're all very much about bringing people together into this shared experience, this game allows people to feel part of that shared experience, even if they're alone at home. They're still feeling part of something, and it's very, very meaningful. Where it gets really interesting is that because we can do fans at home and we can do fans in the stadium, we can also do fans at home versus fans inside the stadium. So we did an activation at the Allianz Arena, FC Bayern Munich's arena, with Adidas last year, and we had thousands of people all over Germany playing against 8,000 fans inside the stadium, all taking part in the same quiz at the same time. And so you think about all sorts of different sports with, sticking with football, you've got your international fans in Indonesia and China or wherever on the far sides of the world who will never, ever, ever get to go to their home stadium. But maybe, just maybe, they can play this quiz with the people inside the stadium right now. And that is, it's a wonderful experience. And you can start having fun, like, let's see who knows most about the team. Is it you lot in here, or is it them lot all over on the other side of the world? Let's see who's really a fan of this club, and start having that kind of fun and engagement. Think about what that means for the Super Bowl. You've got activations that could be happening at the halftime break. That is, you could have 80,000 people in the stadium playing against 10 million people who are joining in during the TV ad break. There's tons of potential for doing stuff there. And that's just the beginning. So we're just currently building a new version of our technology that will allow us to build even more fun, exciting games, but always coming back to that essence and keeping it super, super simple, hyper casual, no need for instructions and big wire moments.
Because I think you mentioned that is it the quiz that kind of can work remotely, but some of the other games don't work so well remotely because of the delay on kind of streaming to different venues, really.
Yeah, that's right. So the fan zone games, the racing games and the and Rebound, those games they need zero latency, as close to zero latency as you can get for that one. With the quiz, we can the video that we use is sub-second latency. It's usually half a second latency. Our technology is faster, so we are in there, within that half a second that the video is going from glass to glass. Our quiz product is well within that. So that one's fantastic. They're going around the world. With our Pancake game, we could do that via stream as well. So the point of our game is that you're looking at the big screen and you're joining in from your phone. Latency isn't really an issue in there. You have the window when you can go and take your shot, but that could essentially be happening on broadcast TV if we wanted to do some fun interactivity that way, or on a YouTube stream or any other streaming platform. And the problem you have with a lot of the streaming platforms is it's not just that there is latency, but the latency is different for everybody. So you might be on 1 second, I might be on 15 seconds, somebody else might be on 30 seconds. And so getting a game that can work with all of that latency is challenging. But the Penkit games could do that. You just slow it down. Even the quiz could do it, but you just have to slow down everything. And another way of doing it is that you almost go into a parallel broadcast in that you suddenly leave the big screen. You actually then have a parallel broadcast that's going straight to the phone and then come back into the TV at the end.
You must see the potential in other sectors other than sport. I mean, obviously, it's hard to break one sector, let alone dissipate yourself over different sectors. But yeah, and yeah, if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. I'm just really interested in other ways that you think, because for me, I can see it working at big gigs. I can see it working in theatres. I can see it working before films at the cinema. Like there is a lot of different breakouts for it. But I understand, like, you know, it's not good business to spread yourself too thinly also. So I just wonder about your thoughts on that stuff.
Yeah, totally. So we see there as being essentially wherever there's a crowd in the screen and the internet, there's an opportunity for doing what we do. So all of the sectors all of those verticals that we'll be aiming for in due course include everything from queuing up at theme parks, and they've got big screens showing adverts currently, and instead they could be playing games and giving out t-shirts and just making that experience fun whilst you're standing in line to get to the front. You can then really have fun with that and saying, okay, the winner of the next game gets to push into the front of the queue. So have lots of fun doing that. We are at Printworks in Manchester, so we have our game try again. Our games are in the corner screen. We've got a massive screen called the Pump Yard screen inside Printworks. It's an entertainment venue in Manchester, and they play our games every hour for 10 minutes, taking place there. And in the school holidays, they bring in presenters and give out wonderful prizes for the different shops and restaurants and venues, entertainment venues that are inside the building. So those mega screens is another area. And digital out of home and interactive digital out of home, which isn't a thing yet, but will be soon. And then you talk about cinemas. We're working with Adventure Cinema at the moment. So we have a movie quiz that takes place before all of their cinemas. So Adventure Cinema are an outdoor outdoor cinema company, and they tour around the country with their beautiful screens. And yeah, play a movie quiz beforehand, which is great fun. And then we've got the streaming audience as well. So our quiz product can have embedded YouTube video in there as well. And so there's a massive opportunity to go from this space of basically the space of watching something on your phone to actually taking part in something that's live. And you can imagine any of the big superstar creators running quizzes and game shows. They could just go absolutely crazy with that. So again, it's another sector that could be the spin-off product from what we're doing on a day-to-day basis already. Just tons of opportunities. And as you say, music, we're desperate. So if anybody watching this can help us get into the music industry, we definitely want to be doing that. Because again, every great artist, they have a warm-up act. And you get the atmosphere goes up, and you have a warm-up act, and then it's the end of the warm-up act. And you have 20 minutes, and then you have the main act. But there's opportunities there for doing fun times. And first of all, make it fun and entertaining for the audience. And secondly, get a sponsor involved, and suddenly you've got new revenue streams for everybody. And they're good revenue streams because all of the audience are having a great time with it.
Yeah. And what about winners? What about winners in the crowd? How do you make their experience special? Because I'm not aware of that. So like, is there a one winner, or is it team winner, or what happens there?
All of the above. So with quiz, obviously the winner is the person that gets the most right answers with the quickest time bonus. So that time bonus is measured in milliseconds, and we can go right the way down. So you can sometimes be within a dozen milliseconds between the top couple of players, which is always good. But we can also have teams. So you can have grown-ups, kids, this side of the stadium, that side of the stadium. We were talking with a client a little while ago who wanted to do north stands versus south stand versus east stand versus west stand, and they wanted to then give away the top prize winner would get a lifetime season ticket, and that was the single biggest prize for one lucky person in the stadium. But then the winning stand would all get a free drink, and so that's a great opportunity then for the drinks sponsor to get involved. And so there's so much you can do there. And prizes again, it almost comes back to this gamification thing. Quite often people think that prizes are the most important thing, and they can be really useful to get people to join in. But in some places, many places, you don't need a prize at all. So by making the reward, coming back to the how to get people to do stuff book again, ironically, rewards are the least rewarding way to get people to do stuff. And the reward is even more meaningless if it's not something that you actually want. So for us, it's always about making sure that the reward is play and it's fun and it's exciting and we all cheer and laugh and have fun together. That's the number one thing. But prizes can be very, very useful to get people to do it in the first place and join in. So sometimes we have some amazing prizes like electric cars for Auto Trader, and then we've been doing things recently at one of the UK's largest music festivals, for example, and there was no prizes going on there. For many of the games, we were doing stuff. We were down at Trafalgar Square with McLaren a couple of weeks ago, and they were giving out t-shirts and prizes at that one. And then we were at Wimbledon the other week and there were no prizes there. And so every game is different, every audience is different, but if you make sure that it's fun, then the prizes are the icing on the cake, which is what they should be, because you can only have one winner at the end of the day, and you don't want to have one happy person and a load of miserable people. It's got to be fun for everybody.
Brilliant if you could open the camera. Like, so somebody do this and then a winner, and then they open the camera and then they're on the big screen. That'd be wicked.
It's funny you should say that. Yeah. Well, watch this space.
We're on. Sorry that we got taken caught short, and in a confused moment, Jeff was helping us decipher one of these questions for Gareth. So, welcome Gareth to the live Q&A. Thanks for your time. It was a while since we did that video, so I will ask you directly following on how things are going. But the first question I've got is a bit of a crazy one. So yeah, I'm going to throw it straight at you. How possible would it be to turn something like an RPG dungeon crawler using your current technology into a Ping game for conventions?
Well, good question. And we just had to do a quick bit of Googling on that one. So forgive me if I've got the details completely wrong on this. With our current platforms, it would be a no. We wouldn't be able to do it. Our current platforms were kind of built for the job that they did at the time, which was initially about seeing if this was possible, seeing if there was a market out there, and seeing whether people wanted to play the games. But we were fairly restricted as to what we could do with those games. So, for example, we've got our gorgeous fan zone games, which entertain people all over the world and create lots of delight. And then for the stadium-sized crowd, we've got two products of our quiz product and our pen kick, a soccer game. But if you are working NFL or you work in basketball and you don't want a quiz, then we don't have anything available at the moment. So for quite a long time now, we've been working on internally our infamous V3, and Ping V3 is the answer to everything. We'll solve all of our problems including this one. So yeah, so the idea of this is it's really separating out the front end gameplay element from all of the infrastructure that can scale to large crowds, with the initial goal that we can make games engines on there really quickly, but ultimately we can get to the point where we can open up those APIs in the future for other games developers, including RPG dungeon crawlers, to go and create their own games that can be tapping into our infrastructure, to let our infrastructure do the complicated bit, and let other games developers potentially to go make their own platforms and stuff on there. That's the long vision.
Yeah, nice, excellent. So a couple of other questions. I mean, what's been going on in the last year? Because it is literally nearly a year since we had that conversation, and some things have changed, some things haven't. What's going on with Piing?
It's been great. I mean, we've just said just before we jumped on the call, I can't believe it is a year. I think that shows how busy we've all been. It's going it's very exciting. Everything is growing at a rate of knots. So we've broken another Guinness World Record in the last couple of weeks. We pick up a few awards. Awards are kind of just a little bit of vanity, but they're always quite nice to do. Picked up a few awards. We are doing lots of stuff in Formula One. We're going to be at the tennis this summer. We are contractually obliged to not say who, but we're going to be doing a lot of football over the summer. Potentially with some clients over the other side of the pond as well. So loads and loads and loads of stuff going on. From a business perspective, we're doubling our revenue since last year. It's just going up and up and up, and the quality and quantity of the inbound leads is just increasing as well. So it's all very positive.
Great. I would have predicted it myself because it's such a good idea. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about what I can perceive of the future. I was wondering, whether just to sort of lean back into some of the things that you talked about in your thing and in the conversation that we had, and I wondered, is there a difference? I'm interested in like at the higher end of the numbers, like you kind of got sometimes 50,000 people on the game. What's the difference is there a difference between like 50 and 50,000 in terms of like what that kind of experience needs, or what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, totally. So when we're down at that 50 level, they can be a much more like an arcade game style game. You still need to know where you are, where your avatar is on that big screen, so that you can feel it in complete control, because ultimately we're using our phones as controllers with all the action taking place up there. So we need to know where I am, what I'm doing, how to play better, how to have fun. If you've got 50,000 people, you can't do that. So it's a very, very different gameplay experience. So the soccer game that we've got at the moment is the idea is everybody takes a shot on their phone, and then we have a big reveal moment that makes everybody in the stadium laugh as those thousands of balls go flying around. So that's a different experience. What we're working on with our next generation of games is it's definitely all about the wow moment, so that if it's whether it's 10,000 people or 50,000 people, just making that stadium, as I said in the talk, it's Piing is a prop to make the audience react. That is our goal, is to make people jump up and down and wave their arms in the air and shout with joy. So we're doing anything and everything we can to make that magical moment where everybody erupts. And so it is, in terms of that gameplay, it is a very different experience. But the bits that are still key are that you need to feel like you've got agency. You need to feel like there is that element of skill in there, and a bit of luck as well, that just messes things up for people. The bad luck and boosts the underdog with the good luck. And it is about knowing that I'm doing something on my phone that is affecting the big screen up there and affecting everybody around me that's playing it. So that is the magic that remains the same regardless. But it's difficult and interesting design challenge to make something that feels participative for thousands of people.
Yeah, no doubt. Is there anything kind of blue sky of your own or within the team that that is not possible, that you think is kind of just over the edge? Maybe like, I don't know, maybe Ping, not Ping 3, but Ping 4. Is there things that what kind of blue sky stuff are you thinking about?
We're not worrying about what's not possible at the moment. We're still trying to build what is possible. I mean, I guess how to make that arcade-like experience for as many people as possible. So whilst we're building this new games engine at the moment on the new platform, we're also thinking about the next games engines that we're going to be building from there. And so we have got thoughts on how can you make it feel very much like an arcade game, but for 10,000 people. And there are sweet spots. It would be rare. I don't think we're at a time yet where we would be able to get 50,000 people playing in a stadium, just because people are distracted, people are doing other things. But we need to build the technology so it can get there one day. But we regularly get 10,000 plus in some stadia around in Europe and in the USA as well. So it is, it's about getting this right feel, so you've got your less than 100 player games that are very arcadey, you've got your big stuff for 20,000 people at the other end, but how do we make it feel like that's me up there doing something when there are 20,000 people taking part in that? And yeah, I can't show you anything, I'm afraid, but that's what we're working on. That's the creative challenge.
Yeah,
we'll have something this time next year, definitely.
Cool. Great. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but thank you so much for coming on, for doing the interview with me, and being part of Mac and answering some questions today. I really appreciate it. And best of luck, and I will no doubt be in touch and keep in touch, see how things are going.
Thanks, Chris. Take care. Thanks for having me. Cheers.